Express.js is all about middleware. And you see a diagram here. In the end, middleware means that an incoming request is automatically funneled through a bunch of functions by Express.js. So instead of just having one request handler, you will actually have a possibility of hooking in multiple functions which the request will go through until you send a response. This allows you to split your code into multiple blocks or pieces instead of having one huge function that does everything. And this is the pluggable nature of Express.js, where you can easily add other third-party packages which simply happen to give you such middleware functions that you can plug into Express.js and add certain functionalities. But more on that later. So this is a core concept of Express.js, the middleware. And we can use that by going here after we created the app object, but before we passed it to create server. And then we can use the app and call a method which is defined by the Express framework, use. Use allows us to add a new middleware function. Now the use method is pretty flexible. It accepts an array of so-called request handlers here. And it has some other use cases too. Now one easy way of using it is that you simply pass a function to it, and this function here, this function you pass to app use, will be executed for every incoming request. And this function will receive three arguments: the request and the response object, as you already know it basically, with some extra tricks learned though, and a third argument, which is the next argument. Now you can rename any of these arguments, but what do they do? Request and response, as I just mentioned, are basically what you know with some extra features. Next is actually a function that will be passed to this function by Express.js. And this can be confusing because you're passing a function as an argument to the use method. And this function you're passing is receiving yet another function here on the next argument. And this next argument, basically this function you're receiving here, has to be executed to allow the request to travel on to the next middleware. Now let me show you what I mean. We can simply console log in the middleware here, like this. Now, since I have NodeMon, this automatically restarts the server. And let's now go to the browser and reload localhost 3000. Now actually, this will keep on spinning. You see? So we don't get a response, which makes sense because we got no logic where we would send one. In the console here at the bottom, you see in the middleware though. So this did execute it. This is what I meant. This allows us to hook into this funnel through which the request is sent. If I duplicate this and I add another use statement here in another middleware, and I save this and let it restart therefore, and I now reload this page here on localhost 3000, then I see in the middleware here again, and I see it twice because I pressed reload twice in my case here, but I don't see in another middleware. Now the reason for that is that we have to call next here to allow the request to travel on to the next middleware in line. So it basically goes from top to bottom through that file, you could say, through all the middleware functions, but only if we call next. If we don't call next, it just dies. So if we don't call next, we should actually send back a response, because otherwise the request can't continue its journey, so it will never reach a place where we might send a response. But if we also don't send one here, well, then we never send one. So now with this next call added, we actually make it into this middleware, and we should therefore see this console log. And here we could then even send a response. But we'll do this as a next step because sending responses also changed a bit. So restarted the server, reload that page, and now you see in the middleware and in another middleware, thanks to next. So this allows the request to continue to the next middleware in line, which is the middleware below this one. So this is a crucial concept, this idea of middlewares. And you can use any function that has this format. So that receives request, response, and next. And you should call next if you want to allow the request to go to the next function. You should send a response if you got other plans. So let's send a response in this middleware in the next lecture.